I'm gonna read my book. It's unpublished, but I figure why not? I'll read one chapter at a time and do installments. So the first chapter is called The Cat's Offering. I made a deal with the God of Israel. If I live, I said, I'll write a book about all this. 19 years later, here's my offering. My cat, Chloe, brings me offerings. They're beanie babies. She hunts for the right one, announces it with a series of emphatic meows, then drops it on me. Some have dried cat vomit on them. Most are sticky. Sometimes in the middle of the night, she awakens me with her announcements. The point is, my offering to God is probably comparable to my cat's. Sticky, with a little vomit. But at least I kept my end of the deal. Try not to make deals with God. If you enjoy feeling pregnant for 2 decades with a litter of restless honey badgers, then go ahead and cut a deal. I delayed fulfilling my end of the pact and became spiritually scratchy and suffered with existential bloat. At last, I'm free, kind of. The darkness during my hospitalization meant agony, but there was light too, coming from unexpected places at unexpected times. Almost 2 decades later, I'm still processing it all, the miracle and the trauma. Even though my emotional and spiritual work continues and I'm completely unfinished, here's my beanie baby. Before I was traumatized, you could find me relaxing on the porch watching fireflies. I would imagine them beating their wings to the Song of Solomon, signaling with their bodies that they were all about hooking up with love divine, using the God-given material intrinsic within their bottoms to make desperate pleas in the darkness. In other words, fireflies are interesting, needy, and their butts light up. At the uttermost end of a firefly's being rests the potential for light. Their last abdominal segment banks the treasure. Their loneliness morphed into magic as I sat and watched them employ luminescence in hopes of wooing would-be soulmates. Or they were just horny bugs. I'm idealizing insects. They were probably just sex-crazed vectors orgifying the environs around my porch. I'm projecting my stuff onto them, anthropomorphizing. Who is the lonely soul with the flickering butt? Who the single and lowly flying cricket with tinsel in its rear? It was warm on the porch. The sun had washed the side of my face while I sipped a cool cider, but now the sun was setting. The sluggish bugs, metabolically influenced by the humidity, ambled listlessly in the air above the grass suspended, lighting up the darkness slowly. Petra, my roommate, had mowed the lawn. Green onions, that was the scent, fresh, sharp, and it made me want to toss field greens in a bowl with strawberries, a hunk of cheddar on the side, and a splash of vinaigrette, and of course those tomatoes from the garden. Like candy, those tomatoes. Like magical fruits from Willy Wonka's special patch. That sounds perverse. Erase. Like fat, glossy bubbles. Inordinately juicy and beyond beefsteak. Was Peter's thumb really that green? Or was it radon in the ground? Maybe radon enlarges tomatoes. Did we have radon in the backyard, in the basement? The tomatoes were mutant and tasty. I had a habit of distrusting goodness, was always looking for the fly in the ointment or the hair in the soup, and I usually found it. Still do. I uncrossed my legs and began to feel relaxed. My legs were toned from all the running, 6 miles a day around Forest Park. I examined them for cellulite. My mother's silhouette appeared in the distance. She was walking towards me down Claytonia Terrace with Job and Poochie, adorable dogs, but mismatched, the little one leading the big one. The big one looked like an ox. The small one looked like a rodent with a mop on its head. My mom simply looked lost. An attractive Jewish Brooklynite in the Midwest, wondering where a good deli was. L.A., where she had most recently lived, had bragging rights to juniors, Nate Now's, and Cantors, but St. Louis, she soon surmised, was woefully bereft of corned beef. Culture shock set in for her the first day she set foot on my seminary's campus. She took one look around and with suspicion in her eyes said, "They all look like Mormons here." And at my church, after announcements were read and the invitation went out to attend the picnic in the park, she leaned over and said, "I think it's a cult." My gray and white cat Frankie meowed and scratched at the screen as the dogs jumped up the porch steps. Job, my mom's Great Dane Doberman, lurched towards my cowering cat. I, while swatting at a lethargic fly, told my mom not to let the dogs torment the cat. My mom thought I was swatting at her and that I was gesturally dismissing her request to spend time with her on Sunday. I rolled my eyes. "So now you don't have time for your mother, just your friends, I guess." "Okay, I see how it is now. I shouldn't have left L.A." "Mom, I'm on your dog walking route. I see you 2 times a day every day." She looked at me for a moment, hurt, then walked off in the night with her canine companions. L.A. had become too lonely for my mom, so she moved to St. Louis to be near me. I'd fully expected to return to L.A. once obtaining my master's and thought I might pursue a career in the arts, but I never did. So my mom moved to be near me. My mother is an artist, as am I. I used to blame her artist spirit for all the moving we did. Now I can't blame her, and I can't blame my dad because they're cute. Cute people are difficult to blame. It's like blaming kittens. Like staring a kitten in the face and saying, "It's all your fault." The current cuteness of my parents now dissolves any hard feelings I once had. My dad is an attractive 91 and my mom is a pretty 87. She was 69 when I went through my thing in the hospital. Before I got sick, I did blame her for my problems. I'm not from anywhere, no hometown. We lived in Mexico City, Beirut, Stockholm, D.C., Beverly Hills, and other places which I could never claim as home. My soul feels homeless, and I suspect I will always struggle with this. My dad was in the Foreign Service. I'm a third culture kid. After the divorce, my mother joined the Foreign Service. Then, after she quit, her quest for utopia began in earnest. She has yet to find utopia. Instead, she relocates to various cruel-topias. Crueltopia, a negative place where the Chamber of Commerce brochures are crafted from used toilet paper. These letdowns only galvanize her to seek the promised land with even more fervor. Though an octogenarian, her spirit never dims. We had moved approximately 24-ish times by the time I was 21. I didn't leave for college until I was nearly 25. Back in the 80s, that was considered dysfunctional. Now, not so much. It was hard to leave my mother's side, difficult to extricate. I knew, however, that if I had chosen to stay, our relational trajectory would have continued to evolve into ever unusual remakes of Little Edie and Big Edie, reference to Grey Gardens documentary, please. I turned to the Bible at the age of 21 because of a man at the Bagel Nosh in Encino, California. Ironically, he looked a lot like a Greek god. He was of Greek extraction. I'd never seen eyes so beautiful. They were luminous. His voice, too, was compelling, even if it sounded like a cross between Donald Duck and Jimmy Durante. Raspy and strained, but authoritative. My mom introduced him to me. She was attracted to him and made a point to talk to him whenever she saw him. He read his Bible every Sunday at the Nosh. We roped him into a Bible study, and before I knew it, I was learning Greek and getting rid of my crystals, which I had been praying to. I agreed to open the door to Jesus, but I made sure to let God know that I did not understand the hell thing, and hoped that down the line he would enlighten me because it was a horrible idea and I hated it. How could I, as a moral vegetarian, ever believe in hell? If meat was murder and grilling a few steaks on a Saturday night was a sin, then how could an eternal human barbecue not make my soul gag? The first book of the Bible I read was Leviticus. Just open to it and poof. Okay, here's a book to read. I can sum up Leviticus in 2 words. Slaughtered lambs. We had a lot to work through, this God of the Bible and me. And it continues. Bill was our informal spiritual director for about a year. We met him every Sunday at the Bagel Nosh or the nearby park. Did I know anything about this man? No. I thought he was an angel. But knowing me and how disabled my judgment can be, he may have been a reformed serial killer. To this day, I don't know much about him personally. I think he had worked on Wall Street and was a Vietnam vet. I also knew he was beautiful to look at. My mom thought so too. Throughout the years, I would write him and ask for his advice on things. He called me when I was in the hospital, and it brought me great comfort, as did a couple of his letters. I reread those letters when I need to feel God loves me. Though I became intellectually intrigued by Jesus and as such allowed him entrance into my heart, things were always messy with me and remain messy to this day. I didn't clean anything, and I'm not cleaning now. Currently, I'm staring at a giant dog bed devoid of its pillowcase draped over a director's chair in my living room. I don't have a dog. I just thought I'd like to sleep on it, and I have. The case is in the laundry pile, never to be washed. I like to blame these things on my nannies. I had nannies until I was 8. They did everything. My mom always fired them, though. So it was a revolving door of ever-changing nannies for me. I do have memories of Mexico being alone in the house without my nanny, without my mom, without my dad, without my siblings. I sobbed alone in the dark, I remember. I was probably 3, 4, or 5. We lived in Mexico from the time I was 1 until I was 5. My first word was agua. I guess I was thirsty. Imagine Jesus sitting next to or upon a pile of dirty underwear in your heart. That's what asking Jesus into my heart was like. Did I launder? No. The expectation was that Jesus would do this, like my nannies had. But as far as I could tell, most of the time, Jesus just sat on the underwear. Was I happy? No. Sure, Jesus was now inside me like my tonsils were inside me, but did this mean I was cured of unhappiness? What I always wanted, I realize this now, was gnosis. I wanted truth to emanate from the cosmos and a light upon my head, infiltrating my cognition in a clean, well-lit way. I despised matter. My matter. I wanted to escape the mess of embodiment. My spiritual sensibility favored kind of Neoplatonic thinking. I suppose I secretly expected Jesus to free me of my own base material. Actualization meant freedom from struggle. With a visceral longing, I expected deliverance from fleshy, earthly, bloody battles. I assumed he came to visit me with enlightenment, but no. Instead, during the early years of my faith, my internal state roiled uncomfortably within, and I felt increasingly smothered by dirty laundry, which Jesus never did. But I knew he was there. What he was doing, I had no idea. And as far as meeting my expectations, he hadn't. Foremost among them was, hey, Jesus, if you're going to make your home in my heart, do your chores. I felt like we were just roommates and he never did anything around the house. He was also very quiet, like in ISTJ, while I was an ENFP. Where was any conversation? Meanwhile, I was lonely and lost feeling all the time, and that hasn't changed a whole lot, though a lot has changed. I often wondered what he wanted from me. I wanted to please him, but didn't feel like he was giving me direction, just sitting. That's when I figured he was unhappy with me. To be real, I struggle with this still. It's an ongoing thing in my narrative. Non sequitur. Hebrew doesn't have hard J's, so his name in the original has a Y sound, a Yah sound, Yahshua, something like that. It's a Yah name. Sorry to get all esoteric on y'all. Just keep on. I sat on the porch, glancing at my mom's disappearing silhouette. After she had vanished completely round the corner, I decided to go in the house and comfort my cat Frankie. I wondered about cleaning my room, but never did. Then I wondered what I was doing with my life. If I'd had thought about it back then, I'm sure I would have envied the fireflies. They, so intentional and purposeful, and so well lit in the dark night. I entered my bedroom and rifled through a pile of dirty clothes, pulling my journal out from the bottom, and then began to write poetry about how unloved I was and how I'd never truly fit in, something I would to varying degrees struggle with throughout my life. Yeah, this is sounding kind of like an obituary. Who knows if I'll continue to struggle with feeling unloved for the remainder of my life. At that point, though, I had to lay blame somewhere. So, as mentioned earlier, I blamed my parents. When they hit 80, I withdrew blame. I turned my head. My life had been drained from me, Mother. I turned my head, my heart like a stone, Father. That's what I wrote. I can't kill a spider now. I'm sure that tells you something. I did kill what I thought was a brown recluse recently, though. Terrible feeling. It stared at me with its 8 eyes just before I squished it. So, I guess I can kill a spider. It's just that I feel guilty. Guilt. Another one of those complicated emotional constellations which infuses the darkness with difficult light and leads you into the depths of a perplexing vortex of conflicted feelings. In other words, negative emotions are hard to handle, but if you have the courage to follow them, they may lead you crawling onto the lap of God. I would soon be confronted with a hoary host of negative emotions and a slew of sinking feelings. Petra had a nightmare, and the light it shed was difficult, and when I heard it, I knew it would come true.